connection. And I think one thing that happened to me in my undergrad career, which probably happens to a lot of engineers, mathematicians, people who are doing the hard sciences, chemistry, biology, things like that, is they start to focus very quickly once they've got their general education units, quote unquote, out of the way.
I know a lot of engineering students that's all they did for 4 years straight. It was just hardcore engineering studies and no other extracurricular activities. And I have a friend who, an old friend who did that and had a really hard time finding a job once they graduated because they were so focused on that, but they had developed socially and, in leadership ways, and it took them like a year and a half to find a job because they didn't have other exposure. So
I think it's difficult when you're 18 years old, which is how old I was taking my writing class, to think about what you really want out of it. I think most technical people at that age do view classes outside of their primary interest or something that they believe is very targeted towards their career goals. They view it as a distraction, and I think I was similar in that regard.
I was very well pleased with the education I received as far as the engineering discipline goes. But unfortunately, that seems to be a small set of the skills that I'm required to use here on a daily basis.
Whether you pick to be a biology major or a marketing major or a econ major, I think that part is actually irrelevant. It's really learning to be able to do some core fundamentals when you go into the workforce, and that's be able to analyze something or to be able to communicate something.
I'd say in medicine, if you ask me what the most important skills are, they are, you have to be a good diagnostician, you have to be a good communicator, and part of that means being a good teacher, because you're always teaching your patients, and you're always teaching those around you, and you're always teaching yourself. And you have to be a good writer because, as I said, you're always writing notes.
I mean, it kind of depends on what role you want to take on in the company, but definitely if you want to move up in management, whether it be just managing an engineering group or moving up and trying to become a director or vice president, I mean, your personal skills there are very important.
I remember the first time I had to lead a meeting at work, like 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, I was just absolutely mortal. I was scared out of my brains. I mean, because at UCSD, never did I have to present anything. I think people should be forced to present something,
But there's also something called agility. The ability as a modern person to constantly be slightly doubting your own preconceptions, your own political assumptions, your own assumptions about how nature works.
The only way we can stay ahead here in the United States is by being more innovative, by being just a little bit better prepared, by being a little bit more flexible. And while this does not mean that we don't have to learn the engineering basics, just the opposite, we have to do a good job in learning the scientific basis, the engineering basis. But what sets us apart from other programs currently in Asia, where they train 10 times more engineers than we train in this country, is not that we are smarter or that we are studying harder. It's the additional skills which we gain by not just doing engineering, by doing other things, which help us in the end to be more flexible, to be more risk-taking than others. When you just study the basics and you don't look beyond your own boundaries, you don't take any risks in the end with your own career either. And so these are some of the key things which set us apart from others.
But I remember some of the courses I enjoyed the most were music classes.
I took art classes and I took philosophy classes.
Science for Poets classes.
African music class that I took my freshman year.
culture studies.
Physics and math, and also some humanities.
I took some history classes.
A whole series of literature classes.
Classes where we were working with video or voice samples.
Ethnic studies at some point.
I'm a guy that likes literature in general, but it really wasn't anything I was good at per se. But I enjoyed history and I enjoyed reading different eras and that sort of thing because it gave me that kind of broad brush we were talking about.
You know, I guess it's education versus learning. You learn in your degree program how to do the equations, but education, I think, is the whole experience.
Life is short. The chance to be a grown adult working, that'll keep going for a long, long time. But college is a great time. It's a time to learn about yourself, learn about people, meet great friends, learn things you've never ever really known about, and then dig into them, because it's very difficult to get the time to spend 10 weeks or a semester in one subject to the depth that you get to do in college.
Deliberately doing other things which may not a priori seem to add to your particular field of study, but in the end give you the flexibility which allows you to do more in life than just the crunching numbers.